Hi, welcome to SCW Steve Chats Wrestling right here on youtube.com. Thank you for choosing this channel and choosing this particular video. Remember, you can subscribe right now. Just hit that button just below, and you can like, share, and also comment on the videos as well. And actually, this video is responding to a comment. Yeah, that's right. Rather than giving some news and rumours, I got asked a question, and it was from AdstarGaming, so a shout out to you. And yeah, I thought it was quite an interesting question, so I thought, well, rather than just answer the question, I'll make a video on it. So it's quite nice as well to have interaction with people, and if you have questions and stuff like that, I'm more than welcome to do videos on them, providing that the topics are, of course, to do with wrestling, and that they are actually perhaps on point of where I can feel I can answer them as well. The particular question I was asked is, who would I have in mind of potentially being, say, a SmackDown 6 or a Raw 6, if you will? Who would lead each brand going into the brand split? So I'm going to do an early WWE Draft predictions. Now, I'm not going to do the whole roster because that's just, you know, that's just silly. There's so many wrestlers. There's going to be many potential call-ups from NXT as well. So I'm just going to give my idea of what I think Raw and SmackDown, perhaps at the top of the card, is going to look like. Maybe the shape of the shows, the direction of what they're going, from the rumours that I've heard, and see if I agree with them, and also if I would do it differently as well. So the rumours are that Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are going to be the two main guys on the Raw brand for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, providing that hasn't changed from Roman Reigns' suspension, because that rumour came up before. The other rumour was that John Cena and AJ Styles would be fighting over the SmackDown Championship, which I would predict then would mean that AJ Styles would actually win that feud and become a world champion in WWE if that was to happen. Because I think if WWE wants Cena to be a 16-time champion, I think he is going to have to do it at a big stage. I can't see him doing it on sort of what would be seen as a maybe SmackDown only or a B-rate pay-per-view. I would see it happening at a main stage like a WrestleMania, because if you're going to match it with Flair, it needs to be done on a big stage. That's just my comment on it. Whether it should happen or not is another different story, but I think rather than saying will it or won't it, I think it's gonna happen. He's gonna match it at some point. It's just a matter of when, and I think it needs to be a big stage. So I think that Styles would be there. I do actually agree with those four choices of being the top of each card. I think that would be a good way going forward. As for other players and other people, the rumours were that SmackDown had advertised for the July 19th, but of course now we know the draft is going to take place then, so this could kind of throw a lot of those ideas out the window. But some of the names were advertised for August SmackDown as well, which I believe were the New Day, Cesaro, and I believe there was a couple more, AJ Styles being another one. But my assumption is that probably Raw should be more of the big characters, and SmackDown should be more of the workers, the wrestlers, like what we had of a SmackDown 6 when the draft was originally done in 2002. To show perhaps my age, but let's say experience for fun, before when the draft was done, I think now in the next few weeks we're going to get what the rules of the draft are going to be. Before we had the main champions able to go on both shows. We had the Intercontinental and US titles on one show each, so they were dedicated to one show. I believe that if you're looking at that right now, I think The Miz would be more likely for Raw and Rusev for SmackDown. But if it was my choice, I'd probably switch it, just because of the fact that I think The Miz is on SmackDown quite a lot these days, and I think he would offer a bit more to the SmackDown brand. It'd be nice to see Rusev on Raw, because he's one of perhaps both are big characters as such, but I mean with the Bulgarian Brute and Lana, it just, for me, that feels it would be more fitting for a Raw brand. And I don't know, I just think with some of the SmackDown stars that could be the indie wrestlers, it'd be more fun to see them go for the Intercontinental title rather than the US title, but that's just a preferable opinion. Looking then at perhaps what other stars might end up, I mean, Dean Ambrose is probably a wild card right now, to where he'll be not perhaps as the champion, but definitely once he loses the championship. I actually see him on SmackDown at the moment. That's where I think his destination will be, because although a lunatic fringe, a big character, I think he could get lost on Raw, because if Raw is given all the big names, all the big players, and the Shield are all there together, then it's going to be a bit like we're getting this triple threat Battleground now. Why are we getting it now rather than a big pay-per-view down the line? Battleground is seen as a B-rate pay-per-view, so my suggestion is that they're going to be splitting this brand. And I think that if you look at Raw this week, you can see quite a few feuds going on that are being dragged out a bit further, and I think they're going to be split. I think Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are going to be split, and I'm not necessarily a big fan of that idea, but I think that that's the direction they're heading. They're both saying that the only way they can get over each other and not to concentrate on each other is to finish the feud off, or in the way that WWE may put it over, is to split them up. It was even teased on Raw that these guys might need splitting up so they can move on with their careers, and if that's the case, then I think Zayn's probably going to head to Raw, and I can see Kevin Owens on SmackDown, because Kevin Owens on SmackDown would lead him to a world title picture, which he is probably ready for. Sami Zayn, on the other hand, is perhaps ready for a mid-title on the card right now, so I could see him perhaps more likely chasing someone like a Rusev or a Miz, depending on which title is on the shows. As for the New Day being the Tag Team Champions, I think the Tag Team Championship should be over both shows. That's my personal preference, rather than having two sets of Tag Team Champions. I know WWE is bringing Clash of the Champions back, but the rumour is that it's going to be a Raw only pay-per-view. So if it's a Raw only pay-per-view, it's not exactly going to be like bragging rights, so I don't see the purpose of having two Tag Team Championships. Saying that, it could happen down the line. We're not going to rule it out, but the New Day, for me, the rumour was that they would be on SmackDown. I think that would be good for the SmackDown brand, but it's hard really to see, really. I mean, Raw is going to need some big names because it's still the big flagship show, and although they're going to want to put a lot of effort into SmackDown, I think that the Raw is still going to have the stronger brand at the end of it. I think you're looking at the likes of Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt, all being on the Raw brand. We possibly would even see Randy Orton, when he comes back, being on the Raw side as well. But I mean, these are just ideas at the moment. We'll have to wait and see, because although there's been heavy rumours with the draft and where people may or may not end up, I would say that looking at it, WWE is known for changing plans. And although in a recent Wrestling Observer article, which I covered on my latest podcast, that they've got an idea where most people are going to end up, you still wouldn't rule out a switch or two between now and when the draft actually happens, because we know what WWE is like. If they see that it's not going to fit, it's not going to work, then they will switch it. I think another thing you need to keep an eye out for as well, in 2002, when the last brand split happened, they eventually, it was Vince McMahon and Ric Flair in control of Raw and SmackDown respectively. That changed very quickly, and when Eric Bischoff was brought in to run Raw, they started what was more or less a trade-off. I believe Stephanie McMahon was in control of SmackDown, and they had where they were trading almost superstars, negotiating, if you want, to bring superstars from the other show to their show to make it bigger and better. So don't be surprised after the first few months if there are people immediately lost in the shuffle and things are not working for certain superstars, that they may bring this back into effect as well, because we know as well as anybody that you look at WWE programming and they don't get everything right, and if they make quite a few mistakes with some of these draft picks, then I wouldn't be surprised if they make quick changes to try and make a more settled roster, rather than to let them rot for a year or 2 years and then bring it back into prominence. So that's my view with that. Quickly touch on NXT for you. I expect a few call-ups. If anything is to go by, I saw a report with the latest NXT tapings that you could perhaps expect Finn Balor, American Alpha and Bayley all to be called up. That was just a report I read. I didn't go into details of the spoilers because I didn't want to find out the results, but what I would turn around and say is that this obviously means Finn Balor, we know he's out of the title picture in NXT anyway, so I would have expected that call-up to happen. American Alpha not in the tag team title picture, so you would expect that. Bayley, not so sure with that one, but if they're expecting her to be called up, then it's about time, and I would support all of them to come up. As for the women then, as for Bayley, the rumour has it now that they're going to be split over two rosters. Originally it was going to be on one roster, which I think would have been Raw, because you've got the third hour and you could utilise that to a separate division and would be healthy for the women's division. I still think they're going to sort of do that if they split the women's roster up into two split brands. I think you'll get more of the wrestlers on Raw and more of the Total Divas, if you want, on SmackDown, and in that way you can have the champion go between the two shows. I think that would be healthy rather than having two women's championships, because the women's title then can remain fresh. There's not really lots of women compared to the men, although it's stronger than ever. You could then see Charlotte either a feud on Raw, than if he was on SmackDown, and probably when Sasha Banks wins the belt, vice versa, and it keeps it constantly fresh rather than that division becoming stale very quickly. So that would be my touch on that. As for Finn Balor and American Alpha, I would see them both on the SmackDown brand, because if AJ Styles would be on SmackDown, I would expect, to be brutally honest, I would expect that the club will join, and I think Finn Balor is going to be a part of that. So I think that he'll be on the SmackDown brand. As for American Alpha, anything can happen, but I'm going to go for SmackDown again, purely because depending on what happens with the tag belts, if that is split between the two shows, I think Enzo and Kaz will be on Raw, so I think it makes sense for American Alpha to be on SmackDown. So that's my viewpoint there for you. I've probably covered a lot more what I think will be on SmackDown rather than what will be on Raw, but I expect the likes of like a Sheamus, a Del Rio, and all those kind of characters to perhaps be on Raw. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. As for people like Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, they could be either Raw, but I think that they could be on SmackDown. I think that's going to be a lot of more of the fresher wrestling, the call-ups from NXT. Those kind of people will probably be more on SmackDown. The wrestlers, the wrestling. I think the big sort of characters and stars will be on Raw to follow the lead of Reigns and Rollins, and then we'll have to see what happens into pay-per-views going towards WrestleMania. Will there be a crossband at WrestleMania? Time will tell. It's too early to say, but I wouldn't put it past WWE if they want to have the big matches like they used to do 2004, 5, 6, where they had people from Raw versus SmackDown at WrestleMania. That could very much happen, but again, time will tell. If they want to put on the biggest WrestleManias, they'll probably do that then. I wouldn't be surprised. So that hopefully answers the question quite well in depth. If you have any questions of what you would like me to answer, providing that I can, then please leave comments in the comments section, and you never know, I will either answer them directly on there, or I might even make a video on them. So you know, I'm willing to do that for you, because I think it's kind of fun to do some more interaction. It's nice to give the news and the rumours, but personally for me, it's just news, and you give your opinions on it. I don't want to be just a news bulletin. I'm here to really want to give my opinions on wrestling and what I think of it, and I think that, like, with this particular question, it's kind of more, can go down that line. It's more interesting, and hopefully for you as the viewer, it's more interesting to see what I think as a viewer myself on the product. So if you have any questions like this, please leave in the comment section. Remember, you can subscribe right now to SCW right here on youtube.com, and once again, thank you very much for watching.